to get in. Oh, great. Thank you for recording.
Audio is still connecting, I think.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, maybe can we drop the link to the presentation in the chat box, please?
Oh, yeah. I can do that in a sec. Once I find the link.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if there's audio issues.
There you go.
Maybe I will. Okay, great. Thanks. And maybe I'll start us off because I'm not sure if there's going to be connection issues. So maybe just we were just talking before we got on the call about how in the last session we held earlier today, how it was kind of important to give a little bit of framing behind this, this initiative. This is something that it's an initiative that received support through the Moore Foundation under the Collaborative Learning Initiatives. And it's been this kind of idea, I guess, that's been brewing in several people's heads for a while, that there are some teams that are looking for lighter ways to get into the conservation standards for a variety of reasons. It might be because of time or resources, or there's not the buy-in from teams yet to do a full version of the conservation standards. And so maybe they want to do an introduction, whatever it might be. There might just be different constraints and that are kind of making people look for something that's a little bit of a lighter touch. And with that in mind, there this idea of this initiative to try and think about, well, for those situations, what are some tools and tips that people can use to enter at with a lighter approach. But the conservation standards themselves are the standards. They are what we should all ideally be doing. And so this is in no means meant to say this should replace the conservation standards, but rather it should be kind of a complement to the standards in a way of getting teams introduced to the standards and using them. But these lighter approaches don't work in all contexts. And so really kind of thinking through carefully whether you are in a context where it would be appropriate to take a lighter approach or not. And I think that's something, this is what we're sharing with you all today is a working draft. And I think that's something we have had some feedback that we need to strengthen a little bit, kind of laying out some of the conditions where a lighter approach might make sense and where it might not make sense. So anyone else from my team want to add some other framing comments there before we dive in? Okay. All right, so great. I see we have a few new faces here too. We're gonna, in a minute, we'll get into a little bit of an icebreaker, but I think if we stay as a small group that we might just keep everything in plenary. So I'll kick things off here. And first of all, thanking you all for showing up to this webinar. We've really had over the last several months, we'll get into this in a bit more detail, but we've had a lot of great input and insights from the conservation standards community. So we're really grateful to you all for continuing that and showing up and helping us think through some things. So today we are hoping that we can share with you a little bit about this lighter conservation standards initiative, and that you'll be able to provide us feedback on how the tools that we're developing could be used, promoted, developed, refined over time. So agenda-wise, we're gonna, in a minute, go over to Miro board where we can just play around a little bit, get a little bit of practice, do some introductions, and then we're going to give an overview of a lighter the Lighter CS initiative, a live tour of some of the tools and products we've been developing, and then have time. We're hoping at least about 25 minutes where we can get input from you guys on what you liked, what you didn't like, what you think we can do better, and any other insights. So our team here, this is the people that are kind of responsible for developing the technical products you will see today. But we've had Will Beal from WWF, who's provided some strategic insight and input direction as we've been going along. And then we've included CMP and CCNet because we really consider everybody who's been helping and supporting and sharing ideas as we've gone along as part of our team. So before we go into the overview of the Lighter CS initiative, I'm going to jump over to the Miro board. If somebody could put the link in there in the chat box, please, that would be great. I know we're all getting fairly familiar with these online platforms, so hopefully you've used Miro before, but just a couple tips here. If you want to see any of the boards themselves, you can open your sidebar by clicking on this bottom at the this icon at the bottom, and that will give you the panels that are available for you. Right now, though, we're going to stick in this intro overview panel where we've got our agenda and our objectives, our participants, and we have links to the different products we've been developing. We're also going to drop those links in the chat box, but you can come back to this board at any point in time and find those links. Uh-oh, my battery's running low. I forgot to plug in. And so, but right now we are going to zoom in to this space right here, this map of the world, which may look a little different from what you're used to, but hopefully you can find where you are. And what we'd like you to do is just grab a sticky and drag it to wherever you are. So I'm somewhere over here, I think. I'm zooming in. I'm using the scroll button on my mouse to zoom in, and just write your name, where you're located, and maybe who you work for. So Caroline FOS. Okay, we'll zoom out a bit. We've got a few of us from the US. We've got Armando. Who do we have here? We've got Gerardo in Mexico. Great. And I imagine we're going to see some people over in this side of the world. So great. Really happy you guys could join us and that this timing worked. So this is just an opportunity to play around a little bit in Miro. How many people do we have here? We've got 13 participants. Maybe if we could all just turn on our cameras, since we are such a small group, it might be nice also to see faces and just say hello and who you're with. So hi, everybody. I'm Caroline. I'm with Foundations of Success. And over to you, Ashley.
Hi,
And then
I'm
me.
Ash Baker. I'm also with Foundations of Success, and I will pass it to Armando.
Hi everybody, my name is Armando Valdez. I'm also with Foundations of Success, normally in Lima, now in Orlando. I'll pass it to Marcia.
Hi guys, I'm Marcia Brown. I work for Foundations of Success also, and I'm based just outside of Washington, DC. And I will pass it to Gerardo.
Hello, everyone.
Gerardo.
Nice to see you. I'm Gerardo Rios, and I'm working in Mexico, and I am an independent consultant. So I pass to, I don't know who else is here. Let me take a look. To Ash Baker.
And I'll pass it to Kevin because I just went.
Hi, everybody. Sorry I'm off camera. I'm periodically jumping around with childcare, but I'm Kevin He. I'm based in just outside Washington, D.C., and I work for the Pew Charitable Trusts.
And how about let's
And-
pass it from there to Son. I'm gonna Yun.
Hi everybody. I am Phụng. My full name is Phan Kim Phụng. I'm working for WWF Vietnam as an M&E officer. Now I'm in charge of plastic projects. Nice to meet you all.
Great, thank you. And apologize. I'm gonna butcher names, but then I'm gonna ask you guys to pass to somebody else so you can butcher names. How about Diep Tam?
Hello, everybody. My name is Diep. I'm working with WWF Vietnam. Nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you. And who do you pass to?
I pass to Sơn.
Oh, Son, you are on mute.
And I think you're on mute.
Sorry. Hello, everyone. My name is Sơn. I'm from Vietnam, WWF Vietnam. I am a social and environmental safeguard and also risk manager of WWF Vietnam. Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Okay, and who would you like to pass to?
Mr. Kha.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello. I open video. My name is Khan from Vietnam. WWF Vietnam. Nice to meet you all. Thank you so much.
You too. And Huy Shim?
From WWF Malaysia. I'm based in Kota Kinabalu on the island of Borneo. Nice meeting everyone.
Nice to meet you. And Sarah?
Okay, I didn't realize I was going. Hi, I'm Sarah. I'll turn my video on. I am working with CMP on coordination communications, and I'm the one that's been sort of emailing all of you about registering for these webinars. So thank you for joining us. And then I will pass it to Natalie.
Hi all, I'm Natalie Holland. I work with the Nature Conservancy and I'm based in Australia. Has anyone not gone now, or is that everyone?
I think that's everyone.
I think that is everyone.
Yep. Okay, well, thank you all for joining. I think we had breakout groups planned, but I think we could maybe do 2, or we could maybe just all stay in plenary. So we'll figure that out as we go along and see if we grow or shrink. But I think at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Marcia. And Marcia, would you like me to share my screen, or do you want to share yours?
Yeah, if you can
Okay.
continue sharing your screen.
Okay, great.
So I'm just going to give a little overview of our process. And if you can go to the next slide. Okay. So we have tried to use essentially sort of an agile programming approach to developing this guidance for lighter approaches to the conservation standards, where we seek input and then we develop something and then we seek some more input and then we work on it some more. So we started out by sending a survey out to the conservation standards community, and fortunately we got 57 responses. And as people responded, they suggested some resources that we should look at, and we then organized some community consultations to share the results of the surveys, not just the resources they'd share, but the answers that people gave. They gave a lot of tips, mentioned, materials that they've used, approaches that they've used, and so we were able to share those results and also solicit other tips from folks with those initial consultations in which 23 folks participated. And then we organized, so based on their input, we then developed an initial draft of some materials based on the guidance that they gave us about like what form that should take and what it should focus on. And we organized a couple of sessions last November as part of the CCNet virtual rally, and we got 84 participants to that. And we continued working on the products, got things in by the end of the year to a point where we were comfortable giving them to more, but it's not a finished product yet. We still want to work on it more, but we wanted to share with you all where we're at and what we've done so far. So that's what this webinar is for. So next slide. So when we talk about lighter conservation standards, what we're really looking for is helping we're looking for making the use of the conservation standards easier and less time consuming for the team, not necessarily for the coach. So sometimes in order to make things quicker and easier for the team, it actually means more work for the coach in, for example, developing drafts that the team can respond to. But we wanted to have the guidance very clearly based on the conservation standards steps and sub-steps, but offer simpler tools and processes for completing those steps. We wanted to clarify that the conservation standards are really flexible, that tools can be modified to meet different needs, and give some guidance about which tools to use under different circumstances. And we tried to really focus on principles rather than tools, and say, for example, you really need to do a situation analysis. You can use the situation model to document that, but the focus really needs to be on having analyzed the situation. And we tried to clarify what parts of the process are like must-have versus what are recommended. So next slide. So we started out thinking about this this product as basically a cookbook, thinking that you have different situations or different scenarios where you want to produce different things. Maybe you are working with a team that wants to go all the way through the cycle, but wants to do that really pretty quickly, and then figure out where they're going to come back and really deepen. Or maybe you're just trying to generate some interest by doing some initial application of some of the conservation standards tools. Maybe you're doing a full conservation plan. Maybe you're promoting policies. These are sort of common, we call them scenarios for the use of the conservation standards. And so, yeah, thank you, Caroline. So for each one of these scenarios, using that analogy of cooking, thinking of, these scenarios are like our dishes that we are trying to prepare, we put together recipes for each one of those scenarios. And those recipes give some high-level directions of, what steps you would take, and they have your list of ingredients. And those list of ingredients, of course, come from the conservation standards. They are sub-steps or tools from the conservation standards and are all color-coded to link to the appropriate step that they are from. And then for each one of those ingredients, we then have some tip sheets where we present different approaches to taking, to lightening, to taking a lighter approach, basically, to, for example, defining your scope and targets. So we have 3 different lighter approaches, and there's one card that has sort of general tips, and then there's a card for each one of those lighter, 3 lighter approaches for, in this case, scope and targets. So all of this is organized in a PowerPoint, but made in a way where you can sort of jump from one part to another. So just to explain a little bit more of the scenarios, we started out just using a Google spreadsheet to, down the first column, put all of the conservation standard steps and sub-steps, and then put our scenarios across the top. And then we looked at, well, if you were doing a really quick iteration, but it was full cycle, what would you really want to do, but do it fairly, briefly? Well, you definitely want to do scope and targets. You'd want to do a situation model. You'd want to prioritize your strategies, do theories of change, do indicators, and it goes down. Of course, there isn't just steps 1 and 2. There's also 3, 4, and 5. But so we color coded things as either, well, include this, or probably don't include this by leaving it white, or potentially, maybe this could be useful for you, depending on your situation. So that spreadsheet is available for everybody. And now I am handing it over to Ashley.
And
She's
I
gonna
will try to find the bar to stop sharing and transfer.
Yeah, and she's going to take us
there you go.
on a little tour of the actual product.
Yeah, okay. And we'll be sharing this link to this product with you, if not now, shortly. Great, so it looks like everybody's seeing my screen right now. Wonderful. So we did a lot of the framing, so I'm just going to briefly touch on the first few slides and then get into the actual recipes in our cookbook to orient you to them so that you can think about it a little bit and give us some feedback on it during the rest of the session. So once you get into the cookbook, you've got kind of our standard acknowledgements here, but on slide 3, that's the place to go. This is a slide to bookmark if you're going to bookmark something. This is kind of like the home page. We've set this up, even though it's in a slideshow, it's kind of acting as a makeshift website right now. We'll see where it goes in the future. Maybe it will also end up on a website, but for now we're testing this as a slideshow in the form of a website. So imagine it kind of in that way as you're experiencing it. So here's our table of contents. This is like our home page. So if you're on any pages in the future and you want to get back to this page, you can click this little home icon and find your way back here. You've got a few sections to this product. We've got our introduction and framing, which goes into a lot more detail than what Marcia and Caroline just shared. The framing around why we've created this product, how to use the product. Again, really reiterating the point that the conservation standards in their full form is ideal, but we recognize that sometimes we have to use a lighter approach and giving us some thoughts about when we might do that and how we might do it. And then we have details on how to use the cookbook, recipes for the lighter conservation standards, which I'll explain in a little bit more detail in a moment, and then tip sheets for those ingredients. And this is a nice slide to keep because maybe you don't want to just focus on scenarios. Maybe you find yourself in a position where you just want a tip sheet on a series of change, for example, and you can use this page to click right on that box and click the link to the appropriate slide that will give you the tip sheets for series of change. So I'm going to scroll down a little bit here. Again, all of that really great framing and purpose and why we chose to do this as a cookbook is all found at the beginning. Again, and notice that this is a draft form, so we're going to continue to be updating this with new information as we develop it. But I really want to draw our attention to the how to use this section. So that's slides 14 through 16. And after I give you this presentation, don't worry, everything I'm going to tell you is available in this cookbook. So if you miss anything, you can always go back and find it on these slides. So we're going to talk about how to use the recipe cards and how to use the ingredient tip sheet once you've got those recipes in mind. I'm going to use the full cycle basics example just to walk us through. So on this slide, again, I'll draw your attention to that little house in the bottom left here. If you ever want to go back to the home page, you can click that and find your way back there. But this this recipe is really giving us all the information we need to take our project or program through the full cycle basics for the conservation standards. And so you'll see here the scenario or the conditions under which you might use this recipe card. So in this case, we're saying that the project team might want to apply the full conservation standards to the project, but there's limited time and resources to go into a lot of detail. So instead, we're just going to really focus on the basics for this lighter approach. And so if that's the scenario you find yourself in, this is the recipe card for you to use. So you take a look at the ingredients on the right. These are all of the elements that we might pull into a full cycle basics using a lighter approach. So each of these boxes are clickable. We learned that it's a lot easier if you click kind of toward the side instead of the middle. It's a little bit harder for that link to show up. So that's something we'll have to problem solve. But click kind of toward the edge and you'll be able to get those links popping up there. And those are all the ingredients for how you take yourself through the scenario. And then on the left, we've got the directions for how you use each of those ingredients in your recipe. So kind of some of the basics for scope and targets, we're saying define the boundaries of your project, you know, the really straightforward stuff, and helping us think through how we would use those ingredients. I'm just going to draw your attention to one point here, which is this asterisk and italics here. That's linked over to the operational plan, which is also in a lighter blue on the right over here. We've used that coloration and those kind of marks to help us recognize when you don't necessarily need to use this in the full cycle basics. This is a potential thing for you to pull in. So if you're really strapped for time, you might not need to use this. And in this scenario, we're suggesting that you only need to use the operational plan component if the risk appears high, because you might want to consider and plan for risks. So that's what that demarcation means. So I'm going to take us over to one of our tip sheets, and then we'll give you all some time to kind of look at this and give us some feedback on it. So each tip sheet has a landing page. You can see here, this is the first landing page for scope and targets. We start off with a basic overall suggestion for how you address scope and targets in a lighter way, but we also have 3 specific ways that you can do this depending on your context. So generally, we know we want to keep the scope and targets, but we also, oh, sorry, getting distracted by, okay, not a necessary, okay. So the general tips on the right here, these are relevant to all of the tips that we're going to propose. So it's important to take a look at these important general tips for doing a lighter approach for the scope and targets there. I'm also going to draw your attention to the bottom right here, the examples and resources page. This document isn't complete yet, but if you click this, it will take you over to a section in a document that we're working to expand on, which will give you kind of the detailed resources for how to do this step, whether you're doing it in a lighter approach or a more robust approach. And so you'll get examples here of folks who have done it in a lighter way and how it's worked for them. But you'll also have access to the standard conservation standards approach as well. But that is still under construction, but do get ready for that. It's going to be an exciting addition to the tool as we develop it. But back to our actual tip sheet here. So we've got 3 different types of lighter approaches that we could choose from, and you can see them below in the following slides. So we've got the consult with key people, the clumping exercises, and the tier prioritizing here. And so each of these will give you at the top an example of when you use this type of lighter approach and what you lose from using this type of approach. And that's just helpful to help you decide when exactly you're going to invest in this consult with key people, for example, versus one of the other suggestions that we make for you. So each of these are going to give you kind of a step-by-step process for how to do it. So we tried to make it very how-to focused, and then also some tips that are going to be specific to that lighter approach here. And I think we gave each of our tip sheets about 3 different types of approaches, just to give you an ample number of options to choose from. So I think with that, I'm going to leave it there. We've got, I guess there's one more thing I wanted to share with you, and then we'll switch over to group work, was just to remind you that this is still very much under construction. So if you come through here to a tip sheet that comes up with this orange triangle, it's under construction. We are working on it. We will eventually get it filled in, but right now some of that might be blank as we're still working on it. So it will be back, check back soon. But yes, I think that that's it for our tour for now.
Great. Thank you, Ashley. And I think we have enough people that we can break out into 2 groups. And Sarah's going to get that set up. While she's getting that set up, I'm just going to direct you back to the Miro board. And actually, I'm going to close a couple of spaces just so we don't get confused. But you will go over to what, if you're in group 1, you're going to go to 1-1. If you're in group 2, you're going to go to 1-2. And here we've got, this is a feedback space. And there's space for you all to add comments in these boxes here. We decided to leave what was here from the previous session, mainly because we thought you might be interested in seeing other comments and you might want to react with a thumbs up or a thumbs down, or it might generate other ideas. So we have space for the overall cookbook. We've got an area for commenting on different sections, the introduction and the framing, the scenarios, chart and recipes, the tip sheets, and then finally, I'm holding down on my right mouse to drag things around. Finally, over here, the moving forward, we have some areas too where you can help us think about how we can promote this. And if you can get even really specific, that would be great. Not just social media or LinkedIn, but any specific ideas would be fantastic. And anyway, there are headers here. I'm not going to go into all that detail. I think you guys can get into that with your breakout groups. But if you can just start filling that out, and Sarah will break us up into groups, and we'll have about 20 minutes, and then we'll come back together and just talk about a couple of next steps.
As you see right here, oh, sorry. As you see right here, we're in the last step where it says guidance review early 2022. And we will be consulting with reviewers, considering feedback from webinars, these 2 webinars that we've had, one earlier and now. And we will be trying to finalize the products, although, as you know, this is an ongoing process, and it will probably take over a year to complete the tip sheets and scenarios that we've been talking about. Natalie, you're raising your hand. I don't know if, yeah?
I had a question, if I could.
Oh, sure.
You've mentioned, obviously, you'll leave the feedback thing open for another week or so. Is it something, are you happy for us to share it to colleagues who might not have been able to attend today, and like it's, yeah, to give content feedback? Good, cool.
Definitely. Yep. And any feedback that we
hassle
can
the rest of those Australians.
That'll be nice. That'll be nice. Unless they want to change the whole color scheme again, that's. But anyway, one of the things that we would like, now that you know what we've done and what is expected and where we are going for or towards in the next months, is that if you want to be a content reviewer, if you want to help us with reviewing the content, then please, there's a sign up in that. That would lead you to the Miro board where you can put in your name and your email, and we will contact you. This frame is important for us. We will probably contact you afterwards. And as you know, there is a lot of content that has to be reviewed, but it will be very, very helpful for us. Okay. I think that's everything on our side. We want to thank you for being part of this webinar and for your help and support. And again, as we've said at the beginning, the whole thing about the lighter touch conservation standards is not instead of the full conservation standards, but we acknowledge that there are scenarios and there are situations where a lighter touch would be more helpful. As we have discussed, maybe you're starting something, or maybe you're in a situation where resources, time, money is not available, and you need something tips and you need scenarios where it can be helpful to go a little bit lighter. So thank you again, all of you, and hope to see you soon. Cheers.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Have a
you.
good
Bye-bye.
day or
Thanks,
evening.
Bye-bye. Or a good day.
Yeah, thank you.
See you later.